Plasma chainsaws are the best thing ever, Mikhail cried out as he cut his way through the door. I hope they start selling these commercially. And you ask why they call us war apes? Francesca asked from beneath her helmet. It was a comradely sort of derision, and he could feel the smile even if he couldn't see it. Point taken. Now everybody get ready. This is a security station. There's bound to be a bunch of rocks in here. They lined up behind 6 abreast, the light roaring noise of their weapons as they began swinging them in the door patterns they'd been taught to use, creating more and more molten metal drippings as they cut their way within. The sound of the massives getting ready hit his ear as they broke the first gaps through, each side ready to die. Mohammed, James, Gabriella, 3 count for support squads. Then fuck 'em up, Mikhail shouted, and a kick of 6 heavy boots broke down the secure door and the war apes rushed in. They howled like maniacs. The first wave, 2 humans went down before the gap could be closed. The massives were brave at least. Not just big, but the squads of 6 knew what to do. Each successive rank to enter took position to surround and cut the giant rock people down to pebbles bit by bit. The fight was brief and brutal, and repeated all over the ship, and from those with cameras, transmitted back to the flagship to in turn be broadcast to the entirety of the Allied forces. Zalia homeworld. They have swarms. They have swarms, the Queen muttered to herself. It had been ages since another swarm had faced off against her own, and that had been a rival queen of her own race before the unification. This changed everything. War apes are adaptable, flexible. Their lack of unity I thought was weakness, but they make it into strength. I must rethink everything. Pankin homeworld. The new Pankin Council watched the transmission of war ape madness. Nor were they alone. The government was now totally transparent after the debacle of allowing it secrecy before. So the transmission of the war ape infantry invasion of the Massive's flagship was broadcast on view screens on each of their few remaining worlds. Some were fascinated. Some were horrified. Some, however, were enthralled with the kind of culture that could birth a people like the war apes that had once not only humbled and nearly wiped them out, but which was now acting as, impossible as it was to believe, protectors of the quadrant. The very young, who had no living memory of the nightmare that had taken so many, began to view the Terrans very differently than their elders. Aboard the Perry. Most of the Massive's fleet was in disarray. Several had exploded, the great gouts of heat and flame that extinguished itself in the endless night of the void, fading away and taking any surviving crew members with them. Other massive ships began to attempt suicide runs, using their asteroid ships as rams. Time for something else, Admiral Maxwell said and broadcast word to the Allied fleet. We're going to pursue, join us if you can, remain behind if you can't. Oh, and enjoy the music, he said, and turned to his comms officer with a devilish little smile. Make sure the Massives know. Everyone, let it be said throughout the whole galaxy that Terrans, war apes, go into battle with music at their backs. Play Beethoven's Ninth in D, the dramatic version. The Terran fleet formed up again, their ships keeping order where the Massives retreated in chaos, some ships dropping back as they were damaged and unable to continue to withdraw. Massive homeworld. The transmission reached the homeworld, with the Terran music still playing. They fight like demons. Our fleet is in chaos. They have taken most of the flagship and continue to advance. I may have to self-destruct. Send out everything you can muster. They follow after us. The transmission became fuzzy. Hit the self-destruct. They're breaking through. And the hall of the Massive's great council chamber sat in stunned silence as a trio of maskless flesh faces charged into view, howling out a dreadful noise as they began to cut down the towering men of stone. Little things, really, but they moved in groups to compensate. In silent, burning horror, the council saw their best and brightest cut to pieces under the ever-present war screams, while war ape music accompanied the slaughter. The transmission cut out, just as the war apes raised their plasma chainsaws up and let loose something that was the same across all cultures and races, including the Massives. A shout of victory. "We can't be broken, we are massives," somebody said in protest. But the black screen dared them to make a better argument than that, and none was offered. The music of the Terrans spread out over 10,000 networks. The music of Terran children singing something entitled A Christmas Canon. The music went on a full loop and began to fade into the background with the appearance of the Grand Presider on the screen. "The massive invasion has been stalled. They were stopped before they could penetrate into the interior. And even as I address you all, we are in pursuit with some of their captured ships. As everyone is now aware, another assembled fleet of our allied states is coming together to rush to the aid of the swarm. The Zalia will not fight alone. The flagship Sparta and its sister ship the Athens are leading the strike." He let that statement hang. What lies ahead is a long war, a war that should never have happened. The hostility of the massives was known to all, and yet they attacked. Why? He didn't leave them wondering long. Because they thought they could win. They saw a disunited quadrant and believed they could win because of it. They thought it would be easy because we all stood only for ourselves. True, we have our confederation. But there are many others not party to it. And could the confederation have won by itself? The ugly question had a nasty answer admissible in trillions of private minds. Unlike past leaders, the Terran chose to speak to every citizen in the Alliance, his words reaching their radios, video monitors, listening devices, and more. Streamed on every channel, public screen, and more, at his back was the empty void through which he sailed. "The massives will lose this war. Our swarms, our allied ships, they prove a greater truth that is as timeless as time, that together we are strong. Apart we invite weakness, united, the galaxy is open to us all. Let no planet in the quadrant stand alone. There is room enough for all in this universe if they are willing to live in peace. But we know that in this universe, not everybody will. Trillions of galaxies are simply not enough for them." A planet began to grow larger on the screen. "Therefore I propose a change to how we as a quadrant do things. We are many, we are different, but if we put forth first and foremost the right of all peaceful races to live peacefully, we can unite as never before. We can enshrine this in a law that all will follow. A 3-tier government, a single presider, a Senate composed of 2 representatives of each people, and a representative house which represents the numbers of sentience. To protect the interests of all, the powers of each will be divided. Further, the top legal minds of every race will craft a common set of laws which hold true in space between every world. In doing this, we craft the first stellar hegemony, a united federated system of peoples that will allow us to face the universe together." In the background, the quiet music calmed, and dreadful lyrics began to reach every ear or semblance of ear. The name of the music in a small corner, "Tear down the bridges." And for those who will not live in peace, there can be only one end against the might of a united hegemony. The world loomed large, and across the many view screens the name of the massive world scrolled. He pushed a button with his false hand as he entered orbit and said, "Go on, give them back their ship." For a moment the quadrant was confounded, until the view showed the asteroid ship looming large and descending toward the planet with its thrusters on, so that it traveled at 1/3 light speed toward the surface. "That asteroid is 8 of our miles wide. A 6-mile wide impact at far less speed caused a mass extinction on my world over 65 million years ago. The massives were kind enough to arm us with a number of these weapons. We're going to give them back until they submit unconditionally, or there are no more of them left to surrender." For the first time in an age, from the Zalia Queen's nest, to the Pankin Council, to the Terran homeworld, the entire quadrant was silent at once. "We will forge unity from our disunity, if you are willing, and settle the whole of the galaxy together, in peace, in brotherhood, in security. And may any gods there are preserve those who stand in our way, because together we will win through." He looked down at his officer. "Take us to the next world. We have more ships to return to the massives." The transmission cut out, and were there any gods looking down on the living of the many worlds? The roar that followed would have rendered them deaf. Then the words stellar hegemony was on every mandible, beak, tongue, and more. The massives of the homeworld watched the open transmission with alarm. Send another fleet. How many fleets do you think we have? All of them. Every single ship. We can still beat them. We just have to hit them hard before they reach the core worlds. Will that really work? I think so. Most echoed the agreement that it could. But for some, the question could only be asked, what have we done?